With pay-per-views taking a decided backseat in the WWE network, the idea has been put forth to reduce the number of WWE pay-per-views from the annual dozen. Not a bad idea considering there's been nothing of note that really happens in any secondary events like Payback, Fastlane or Night of Champions. There's really no point in spending 3 weeks to build up a match that pretty much falls flat as a pancake. And then that way we won't have to worry about some of the totally horrendously lame ideas for pay-per-views. I'm Cal from WhatCulture and here's 10 of the lamest WWE pay-per-view concepts ever. Number 10. Taboo Tuesday or Cyber Sunday. Once the WWE product began a slow decline in the post-invasion dregs of 2002, fans became more outspoken and critical of the company they'd held so dear during the Attitude Era highs. In theory, putting together a pay-per-view where the fans got to vote the matches seemed like an absolutely brilliant idea. The problem was they didn't go all the way with it. It was stupid voting choices like which gimmick should Mick Foley portray or what preferred outfit would the Divas wear in a battle royal. They weren't exactly inspiring. You might as well have asked if they wanted fries with that as well. Number 9. Breaking Point. After Brock Lesnar's hammering of his opponent at the UFC 100 drew in 1.6 million buys, WWE decided to run a pay-per-view based upon submissions. 3 submission matches were booked in what turned out to be the lone breaking point in the company's history. Perhaps it was because the event took place in Montreal that inspired the WWE to rerun the screwjob finish in CM Punk's victory over The Undertaker. That, with John Cena making Randy Orton submit after surviving a handcuff beating, made it for a pretty standard night of WWE sameness. The fans weren't so much a breaking point, more like boiling point. Number 8. The Elimination Chamber. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the idea of an Elimination Chamber match. In fact, it's one of my favourite matches to play on the PlayStation. The pay-per-view, however, has its placement on the calendar all wrong. The first 3 chamber matches took place in completely different months: November 2002, August 2003 and January 2005. The chamber was only ever needed when drastic measures were taken to settle scores. TLC and Hell in a Cell suffer from the same watering down value. When the chamber spun off to create its own pay-per-view, it became a building block to WrestleMania instead of a feud ender. Number 7. This Tuesday in Texas. In 1991, WWE undertook an experiment. A full decade before the TNA did exactly the same thing out of necessity, the wrestling giant dabbled with the idea of running weekly pay-per-views. A mere 6 days after The Undertaker defeated Hulk Hogan for the WWE Championship at Survivor Series, the company staged a rematch for a special Tuesday pay-per-view. Estimates on the actual amount of buys that This Tuesday in Texas received vary, but it's believed that it only drew in half the purchases of the Survivor Series. Despite promoting Savage's first match in 8 months, this pay-per-view experiment was a resounding flop. Ooh yeah! Number 6. In Your House. The events themselves were usually fine and were basically treated like 2-hour pay editions of Saturday night's main event, where the entire roster wouldn't necessarily be featured. What earns In Your House a place on this list is a concept of the idea of an original show. One lucky fan was actually going to win a new house. That's mental. A new house. Just think about that. The expanded pay-per-view calendar was born not only of WWE's desire to keep lockstep with WCW, but used a free house giveaway as justification for fans to buy the events. They only ran the promotion once, but the name still stuck. I wonder if they ran a "Welcome to In Your House, don't try this at home" promo. Number 5. December to Dismember. And please, please, can we all disremember this dismember of a December? Try saying that when you're drunk. Beginning in 2003, Raw got 4 exclusive shows, as did SmackDown. A year later, the calendar stretched to 14 total pay-per-views, with Raw and SmackDown now each having 5, supplementing the time-tested Big 4. After ECW One Night Stand helped the spin-off of the ECW brand, they too got their own exclusive event, with the roster so thin that it was transparent. After it drew a pathetic 90,000 buys, pay-per-views once more featured full squads. Number 4. Night of Champions. You knew it was getting bad in 2015 when WWE felt that they needed to put belts on Daniel Bryan and John Cena, solely because they realised that they needed 2 proven stars to elevate the belts from the dead. Cena did an incredibly good job, but it shouldn't have had to come to that. Night of Champions as an idea underscores what an awful job the WWE does of getting belts over. You shouldn't need an event where the gimmick is, "We have belts," and they'll be given over to other people. Or maybe, we don't know. It should be a given that they have belts and they're going to be put on the line. If you have to get fans excited by saying, "This show is about champions," you're also saying that the other shows aren't. And at times, that's been accurate too. Maybe the champions shouldn't lose non-title matches on TV all the time. Number 3. No Holds Barred, the match and the movie. In 1989, Hulk Hogan starred in an awful B-movie where he basically played himself, fighting an evil TV executive through the henchman Zeus. Shortly after Christmas 1989, WWE ran a double feature on pay-per-view featuring the movie itself, followed by a steel cage tag team match pitting Hogan and Brutus Beefcake against Macho Man Randy Savage and Zeus. The only problem was it was pre-recorded 2 weeks earlier and it was fine. Not good, not bad, fine. Number 2. Bragging rights. The brand extension lost its flavour sometime around 2004 to 2005, where it was apparent that anything with any momentum on SmackDown was going to be couriered over to the flagship Raw. And that's what made it all the weirder in 2009 when bragging rights concept came to be. The entire show was centered around the supposed rivalry between Raw and SmackDown. The problem was, there were so many annual drafts, brand loyalty ceased to exist. Not to mention the lack of a general manager and the use of guest hosts in 2009. Awful. Just awful. Number 1. Fatal 4-Way. And it doesn't get any more unimaginative than this. At least with TLC, you're promising fans a car crash, even if it is stuck to a spot on the calendar. Likewise with Hell in a Cell. As a match, people would look forward to the feud as it was enticing. The same, unfortunately, can't be said for a Fatal 4-Way, an event with a pair of, yes, Fatal 4-Way matches for 2 World Championships. Yay! The idea that a Fatal 4-Way could be such a novelty that it would require its own pay-per-view speaks volumes on how desperately out of ideas the company was at that moment. Did we miss any out? Let us know in the comments section, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.